Starting to the bottom left of the map, we have for FXOpen another Zerg player, probably their strongest player.
FXO Lenok.
Lenok has to do it right now. They are in dire need of a victory here. To the top right, we have the captain, he's the coach of the team. Here's for Axiom-Acer.
Axiom Crank.
And he's got the pylon in the main base. A great choice for this map, considering how the natural is pretty wide open. He doesn't wall his ramp either, so he gets a lot of extra income from not sending the probe so far away from his nexus. So a good choice for that.
Yeah, Lenok is immediately cross map, of course, with the first overlord, trying to find out when exactly that expansion is going to be built and what kind of opening we have from Crank if he goes into Forge, if he goes into Gateway. He himself starting things with a hatch first here. And this is a little bit interesting. We talked about this in the past. This is basically just a decision that you make where you think about your opponent and you gamble a bit on him starting with a Gateway instead of a Forge. Gateway becoming much more popular, but usually you would send the second Overlord to that expansion regardless, tries to make sure that your opponent, if he's starting with a Forge, does not simply cannon rush you.
Yeah.
And Lenok is sending out actually a second Harvester and will go for a double hatch before.
He actually does this so often in this matchup. It feels like every single time he's either doing that or he's taking a hatchery at his opponent's natural. He's not he's not going to play a standard game.
Wolf, Crank has now the opportunity to take on that hatch with a cannon.
Notice the Overlord placement for Lenok. Yep. He's going to look to see where the probe goes, and if the probe goes at third base, he's going to send a drone there for sure, just to make sure he can at least get the idea of what's happening. There's the pool going down, and now Crank knows the timing.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to be able to capitalize on it. He just kind of missed his window there. Had he checked the third base first, maybe?
No, I think he could still do it at the third.
He's followed.
Okay, he's already been chased, but he could still go for it.
He could still try.
Even if he just fakes it and builds the first pylon here, then Lenok would have to think about what he wants to do if he wants to send, for example, Harvesters over, and that would lose him a lot of mineral time. But yeah, he's not going to do it because of the drone that Lenok sent after him. So Crank deciding to just play a more stable, more safe build and just instead of risking something here. And that gets Lenok into a position where, yes, he's going to be a little bit vulnerable to timings, but with the Forge opening, those timings are very well known to him and won't hit him early.
Yeah. And the drone double checks here. And that's it for that. I mean, no pressure available to him for now. Starts his core. He teched up pretty quick after the Forge because he knew he didn't need to make a cannon, for example.
So the situation that we have now could not be better for Lenok. This is the best opening you can get away with, and he managed to do it against the Protoss player that started with a Forge instead of a Gateway. If Crank would have chosen to go into a Gateway opening here, then he has a lot of timings at his disposal where he can just hit with a completed Warp Gate. He can then later on even go into an Immortal push against the third base. There are a lot of options that he has. Even if you go into Stargate and you get Void Rays out there, you can do a lot of damage since the bases are quite scattered across the map and it's difficult for Zerg player to jump with the Queens from base 1 to base B. So there are a couple of really strong pushes that you can execute as a Protoss. But if you go into the Forge first build, you're going to delay your Cybernetics core and therefore the tech and the Warp Gate quite significantly. And Lenok knows exactly that at this point he's pretty safe. He got away with that good economy, and all he has to do right now is keep scouting what his opponent does, get the Overlord into the base to find out what kind of tech tree Crank chose here, and then defend accordingly.
And interestingly enough, we have a fast robo after the Stargate, and this could be for a lot of different things. The Stargate play here, like you said, very delayed, and if Lenok sees it, he doesn't actually see it, but he will see the first Phoenix. And when he sees that Phoenix, he's going to think, okay, well, as long as I protect my drones here, I'm still going to be in a pretty good spot. The Robotics is something, on the other hand, he's not going to know about, and we could have a fake Phoenix into an Immortal push. We could also just have 1 or 2 Immortals come out to defend the third base that Crank takes while he's harassing. And in some weird, rare scenario, he could go for a fast Bay and try to hit a Colossus timing. I really doubt that's what we're going to see, especially not on Fruitland with how the map works and how big it is. But it's like, that's that's plan X.
Lenok is currently in a position where he's just preparing for all the eventualities, spreading the creep from one base to another.
He adds the Bay. He's really adding the Bay.
And he is Wow, I was just about to say, he's like hiding in plain sight, but not quite. The Overlord did not see that, and it was close though, but the Phoenix is going to chase it away. But still, like, Lenog is at 60 harvesters, has a good economy, he has a cheap spread between the two bases that allows his queens to walk over if there is like some air commitment that he has to deal with. Doesn't really look like it, as Wolf already pointed out, and the Observer also showed he's going into the robotic space. He doesn't add any additional harvesters.
Yeah, he's not adding harvesters, adding the gateways already.
We're going to see him with that push out with most likely 2 Colossi in range.
You know, we saw a similar opening from Deer just last week against Life, where he just used the Colossi to defend the third base, but this really doesn't look like that, because like you say, he's not making harvesters. Fast range here, range first, and already the Immortal out. So 45 probes is about as much as you want. And Lenog, I think if he gets an inkling of what's going on, should be able to defend. It's all about the knowing right now. 5 gates in total being added. He's really committing right now.
Yeah, I am very curious if this is going to work. Because
Hydras aren't what you want against this, unless you can get a really good flank or a great concave.
The thing is, he will have a ton of units. Like, Lenog will have a massive amount of units against this, and Lenog could actually try to be a little bit aggressive on his own. I mean, look at what we currently have at the production tab. He's going into the speed for the Hydralisk instead of range.
He's getting a ton of them too, because he has so much economy.
Yeah, so he might just run up now and try to take down that wall, and that leaves him a little bit of wiggle room and time to prepare. He even takes a 4th base behind this. I think he misread a little bit what's happening here, but if he goes for a time... Oh, okay, he saw the Colossi. So he sees the first Colossus, so he knows what's happening. And he starts droning.
I can't believe that he showed the Colossi like that rather than just using the Phoenixes to clear this Overlord. Because that makes it too obvious, you know?
Spire coming up as... I don't think he cares anymore. The Spire already coming up as, one way to deal with this. The Zergling's still roaming the map a little bit. I don't think that Crank is actually gonna... Is he gonna push out?
Well, now he's been spotted, and I think he's thinking about it.
Thinking about taking it.
Well, now he sees all these lings, I think he's like, alright, well, I'm just gonna take a base and defend against all your aggression, because I have the perfect composition to defend here. With +1 finishing, I have Colossi, 2 of them with range. He still pokes, though, and he's making Stalkers. He's got that forward warping point.
Yeah, that 4th base, if he attacks that, that's something that Lenog would like, that buys him a little bit more time. But yeah, the army supply is, of course, it's fairly even right now, but Lenog is getting a lot more army into the game.
Yeah, he needs those Corruptors.
I think Lenog misread that a lot.
Yeah, because this is not going to be the composition he wants to fight with, not right now. There's so many sentries.
So good, by the way. Force fields are really good here.
Perfect spot.
Yeah.
And he used the Time Warp even.
He needs to take down the Spot Thrower or it's going to deal with loss. It's not going to happen. But that base is basically doomed. If he keeps on using these force fields, then Lenog can't do anything about it.
Lenog tries to flank with a few Hydras from behind, but there's already Phoenixes ready. Well,
great position here by Crank.
He needs force fields. Where are they? Oh my god, he let the Lings in, but the Hydra's still not able to do the damage.
The Colossi are just shielded. Everything that we have here is countered by Colossi.
Yeah.
Unless you get the flank in, and that was not the case. He didn't get the flank. He kills the pylon. That was important. But that base is most likely going to die. Lenog is running out of army supply. The Colossi are still there. Another pylon being used for the warp-ins, and that 3rd base is already dead and gone, and he could just make his way in and take the rest of them down.
Yeah, but a good position here for the Hydras now in that concave, just not enough of them anymore. He gets a lot of these reinforcements, and that's one thing Lenog hasn't been able to really accomplish, killing that pylon, killing all those Stalkers. 2
mining bases against 2. The base at the right side of the map has not been spotted just yet. It's something that Crank doesn't know about. So the 4th base could be the saving grace for Lenog here. He also has his Spire completed, so he's going into Corruptors right now, but that attack was really successful for Crank. Would have loved to do a little bit more. Lenog's problem was simply he could not get the flank in.
Yeah, these Corruptors will be exposed, of course, no blink, so they can get away. And he's just, like you said, he has all the wrong units to deal with Colossi. The Colossi love fighting against Zerglings and Hydras, and he only needs 2 of them. The rest of the units he wants to Stalkers for those Corruptors. He needs to micro those Colossi, though.
Force fields are decent, and here we go again. The first of the Colossi is finally gone, and the Corruptors are being attacked. Another Colossus still getting his shots off against the Hydralisk. Most of the Corruptors are already eliminated, but the Colossus goes down as well. So many Stalkers left, though, and 67 army supply against 45. Looks like it's going to be an easy win from here on out for Crank. He's trying to make his way in, and Lenog has to hope for that flank to do some damage, but I just don't see it happening anymore.
I don't think so. The Phoenix is even lifting up those Hydras, and GG.
Wow, GG and game. Lenog not expecting the double Colossus push. This is something that we saw in the early stages of Heart of the Swarm. Crank takes the victory, and the 3-0 for Axiom-Acer.
Lenog just, he misread it. And this is such an old build that you don't see very often. That's why I said it's Plan X. because it's just one of those builds that you do when you think you can't win a straight-up game or a macro game. This is not normally how Crank plays it, but he does throw these builds in every now and then.
It's not played that often anymore. The thing is, like, at the beginning when Heart of the Swarm came out, it was like the go-to build for every single Protoss player against the Zerg. You would always go for it. But Leenock, even if he just had, with a flank in the middle of the map, he would have been in a decent position to delay long enough for the Spire to come in.
Yeah, and the position for Crank was so good. You know, I panicked when those Zerglings got in, but then the Stalkers just blocked them out, and the Colossi killed them in 2 seconds. And we're like, yeah, okay, whatever. Where are your Hydras? Oh, they're all the way still over there, so I'm fine. He killed a lot of reinforcements. He killed the pylon. I mean, he was doing everything he could do against the units that were exposed, but when those Colossi came in, there was no way to target them. There was no way to close the gap there.
Yeah, back then it was actually the build where most Zerg players really felt that they don't have anything to deal with this. A couple of Zergs were rushing Hive, trying to get the Vipers out for the Yanks. Others were going into an attempt to just use their Corruptors against it. Then we had like flanks set up. It all depended on the map. I remember that it was one of the builds that was most like really strong on Belcher, for example. You had a lot of positions where you could take down the 4th base of a Zerg player, and it was always a little bit iffy to really get close to those Colossi. But the position that Crank had was just so good with the force fields and also behind the mineral line. Very slow very small surface area that we had there. With flanks in the middle, he could have delayed enough for, and he immediately built his own Spire when he saw what was coming. Even with a couple of Roaches in the mix, he could have probably stalled a little bit longer. But with only Lings and Hydras, Crank just had a really good unit control.
Yeah, I mean, the force fields were really good. The positioning on the Colossi was so good. He always kept it right next to the ramp, so he could basically control the ramp, and then, of course, use the hatchery against Leenox. So Leenox's units would kind of funnel in, so he didn't have to use as many force fields, and eventually, you know, whittled that hatchery down and killed it. The 4th base never really came into play because Leenox, of course, couldn't get any drones in there, and Crank never stopped. He never moved back and said, oh, you're 2 base against 2 base, I'm going to take a 3rd.
Usually in this matchup right now, you see mostly Stargate commitment and not the 2 Colossi move out anymore. So I feel after Leenox saw the first 2 Phoenixes, he was like, alright, you're going for a Stargate, you're going to go for a normal build. I prepare with a couple of additional Spore Crawlers and just make sure that you don't take down too many of my Harvesters. And then when he saw, I'm not even sure if he saw that Colossus with the Overlord.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you see a probe with that, then you're like, okay. But if you see no probe, you got to be thinking he's not taking a 3rd here. That was kind of weird.
No, like the first one, like when the Overlord was taken out, there was a Colossus in the mix.
There's a few sentries.
I'm not quite sure if he really saw that. You know, like the Overlord, of course, was in range, but did he really look at the map at that point in time and saw the Colossus? I don't know. Like shortly after that, he built the Spire, so I guess, but it was just too late already.
Well, here's the second pivotal match. Hurricane coming in here up against a pretty decent opponent for him to face, but he's... some people would say he might have an edge here against Impact because he has more experience, but it's hard to say. And right now, Soul is grinning because if FXOpen gets all killed, that's the best thing for them that they've been hoping for. Now here he is, Impact, the new player to join Axiom, playing for Axiom-Acer here, and formerly known as Mechia, if you guys remember that old Woongjin Stars player.
Yeah, I mean, FXO, I did not expect them to really go 0-3. I thought that one of the first 3 games would go to them, that one of the players would be able to just edge out a win here. But if they go down with an 0-4 again, think about that last season, that was already the case, but back then Innovation was the player. So, I mean, we're going to find out right now. Maybe Impact can actually like perform and take the last victory for Axiom-Acer. So we're heading into a 5-minute break, and as soon as we are back, we will see him going up in his matchup against Hurricane. So see you guys in a few.